All right, I'll call to order the May Broadband Committee meeting. Since we're no longer live streaming, we're here in the county office, and everybody got emailed out the agenda for us to look over. David, do you have it up on the screen?
Give me just a second, I'll put that up.
All right, so everybody should have it on the screen in front of you. Anybody have any amendments to the agenda for tonight? All right, hearing none, we'll move forward. We've dispensed reading the minutes since we can get those back from YouTube since these are all broadcast and stored. So we can grab anybody has any questions, they can watch the last meeting and grab the information from there. So we'll jump down into old business. We'll start with railroad crossings. David, did you want to update us?
So the permits have been issued by CSX for all 4 railroad crossings. There is an encroachment agreement that is being negotiated at this time. Our attorneys have done our part, sent it back to CSX. So if they have no further changes, then we'll get that encroachment agreement in place and we'll be able to move forward. But we have made substantial progress with the actual permits being issued.
It's awesome news. Anybody got any comments or questions on that? All right.
I think it's perfect timing. Jason.
Yep. It's going to be awesome. Everything will fall right into place. Update on Batty 2021, David?
Yeah, if we could, Jason, since this is our first meeting since COVID in person, if we could take just a minute and introduce ourselves so that people can see who we actually are instead of just a little blurb on a Zoom screen. My name is David Sadler. I'm the Director of Information Technology for the County of Caroline. Also a member of this committee as appointed by staff, so I'm the staff representative for this committee.
My name is Brian Farmer. I'm the Coordinator of Technology for Caroline County Public Schools. I'm filling in for Mr. Joey Robinson, who's the Supervisor of Technology for CCPS and is the school board or the school's representative on this committee.
I'm Jason Barlow. I'm in the Reedy Church District. The chairman of this committee, the Broadband Committee, have been on here since 2020.
I am Jeff Seeley. I'm from the Bowling Green Supervisor Representative and one of the board appointed members for the Broadband Committee.
I'm Floyd Thomas, a member of the Board of Supervisors from the Mattapanai District. I have probably been working on broadband since the 90s, so it's great to be here and have it happening.
Stefan Levesque. I represent the Madison District, was appointed by Supervisor Clay Forehand. Professionally, I'm an IT manager for the federal government.
Hey, I'm Jason Jacobus, resident of the Dawn area. Mattapanai, thank you. Vice chair of the committee, thank you.
I'm John Street. I'm a citizen representative from, I don't remember which district I am, to be honest with you. I'm sorry.
That would be the Port Royal District.
There you go, Port Royal. So.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move towards the 2021 update. So at the last Board of Supervisors meeting, I did a presentation that kind of sums up and ties up VATI 2021. Now that that project is complete, we probably will not discuss that at every single meeting. It won't be an automatic entry on the agenda anymore. There will be probably some activities that this committee will need to consider just to keep us in compliance with what we promised to do in that grant. Because even though the project is complete, and all the project is reporting is complete, we still will have audits to make sure that we're still living up to our expectations in that committee. So we'll go ahead and get started. And again, this presentation, and I apologize if you were watching the last Board of Supervisors meeting, or like Mr. Thomas or Mr. Seeley was here during that meeting, this presentation will seem very familiar. However, I think it does do a good job of just shortly wrapping up 2021 and bringing it all together. So the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development administers a program called the VATI, or Virginia Telecommunications Initiative, also known as VATI. So that's what we'll be talking about a lot. So if you hear VATI, it's the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development. In VATI 2021, we learned from mistakes that we made in the VATI 2020 grant cycle. Caroline County and 3 neighboring counties submitted a regional application. Caroline expanded its target to cover 3 areas of the county that had very few options for broadband: Port Royal, Balti, and Panola. These areas were an ideal area to build on the backbone for future projects. At its June 23rd, 2020 meeting, the Caroline County Board of Supervisors agreed to participate with the 3 other counties, Matthews, Middlesex, and Lancaster, to apply for a regional grant that would include construction of 49.65 miles of fiber in Caroline County to serve approximately 500 homes and businesses. They also set aside CARES Act funding in the amount of $614,000 to match Breezeline's commitment to build its part of the multi-county project. The remaining $1.1 million required for this project was requested from VATI. In August 2020, Caroline County submitted the application as part of the 4-county project in partnership with Atlantic Broadband, which is now known as Breezeline. VATI 2021 was a split award. Part of the grants were awarded in January and the remaining were awarded in March of 2021. Caroline was awarded its VATI grant in March of 2021. By the spring of 2022, construction was in full swing. Construction continued throughout 2022. By the end of January 2023, construction was completed thanks to the Caroline County Board of Supervisors, Breezeline, and the Department of Housing and Community Development. The Caroline Broadband Advisory Committee is committed to help Caroline residents sign up for existing broadband options. As of tonight, 222 homes have internet thanks to this project, which just completed. There are about 500 homes and businesses in that project area, so we're approaching the 50% mark. State and federal assistance programs can help many connect to the internet at lower costs. The Affordable Connectivity Program, or ACP, is available to all households in Caroline County who house students from Caroline County Public Schools. Many of the other residents will also qualify. Details can be found at www.affordableconnectivity.gov. If you qualify for this discount, $30 per month credit is available to all households who qualify. The April meeting of the Broadband Advisory Committee has an in-depth presentation of how to qualify. Both Breezeline and Comcast, the 2 main internet service providers in Caroline at this time, have low-cost internet packages at or around that $30 rate for qualified subscribers. So they have a package for $30 or approximately $30. With a $30 discount, you could possibly even get a free internet connection. Many wireless providers will also allow this credit to reduce the cost of wireless broadband packages. You need to check with your individual provider to see if they participate. If you have questions, feel free to ask. You can use the broadband inquiry form to ask us, and we will get in touch with you or get you in touch with someone who can answer the questions and even help you qualify. You go through the qualification process if necessary. The VATI 2023 project, if awarded, will bring an available connection to the remaining unserved households in Caroline. Announcements were originally anticipated by December 2022. However, the additional funding provided by the federal government was causing a delay in the award of the 2023 grants. We do have an update on that for tonight, though. Stay tuned to the county website, co.caroline.va.us, or the official Caroline County YouTube channel for the most up-to-date and accurate information that's available on these projects. That concludes my presentation, sir.
All right. Does anybody have any questions on the 2021 VATI grant presentation that David did? All right. We'll consider that one closed out, and we'll touch on stuff as we need to going forward, but we won't have that as a recurring entry on our old business unless something pops up. All right, I guess we'll move on to Starlink. I can give an update on that. So this past month, there have been a bunch of changes on Starlink that's been going on. I know Jason Jacobus had issues with his Starlink. We ended up tracking it back, and he has worked with Starlink. And this past Friday, we replaced his dish, and things appear to be working better now. And Starlink sent him a new dish, new cable, new router, everything. We mainly just replaced the dish just to give that a first shot. But now the stable internet, and he's actually getting higher speeds now.
Replacing the dish was the last thing, right? Because we had started with the router and the cable as they advised, and then the last ditch effort was to replace the dish. But so far, so good.
Good. The other good things that have come out this month from Starlink is they're no longer having any sort of data caps. So before on the residential plans, they were looking to put in a 1 terabyte data cap. They have since removed that and retracted back from that. They do still have data caps. If you're on a business plan, you can get a 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, or 3 terabyte. I don't know what the individual costs are with that, but the business plan does provide a public IP address so that we can get back into your network if you need to. It also gives you higher priority internet access with faster speeds. I currently don't know anybody that has the business one actually installed yet. But once I do, one of my friends ordered it. We'll see whether he gets it in, and then I'll run some speed tests and try and get some more data back on the business plan to see whether that can help us with potential businesses here in Caroline. I have been contacted by one company here in Caroline County that is looking to put Starlink Business in place and wants to kind of know how that's going to help them. I know Frank Beal was also working with them, so hopefully we can get them some more data on that. They continue to launch satellites nonstop. I think they've launched four sessions of them, or 4 different loads of them, ranging from the 1.0, 2.0 type satellites. They're pushing them up. So they're continuing to build out the constellation and build out more and more, while they're also working on Starship to get it to where they can start putting up large quantities of version 2, which are larger satellites. I did look at the map, and I don't know whether David, because I can't share it here. Can you pull up the Starlink map? Because there's a whole lot more light blue than there used to be. They have started turning on people on the East Coast and making them readily available. I did not, the closest one was Petersburg, I believe, to us, but they're starting to turn on cells within inside of Virginia now to make them readily available. If you click on them, it still says coming 2023 for Caroline County, but we're starting to see some of those lighter cells pop up within inside of the Starlink map. You can still get the portability ones. So, it is a good stepping stone. It's not the best service. It's not, true fiber in the ground type internet, but it is definitely makes, the internet usable at your house without having to use dial up or DSL or things like that. Yeah, we're in wrong continent. So as you can see, they're starting to really turn on. There was a change recently. Satellite dishes on the East Coast, I believe I covered this in the last meeting, but there has been more speculations on this. The ones on the East Coast are starting to point over the ocean, so that way we can start grabbing and utilizing the the satellites that are actually over the ocean, while they can concentrate more on the center of the United States on other people that are, don't have access to the ocean satellites. On the West Coast, they're also pointing those over the ocean to help free up some of that bandwidth and be able to expand it out more. But as you can see, there's a whole lot more blue dots that are starting to appear over Virginia. I believe if we look back 2 months ago, it was all that dark blue. There was no light blue on Virginia. I find it very interesting that the right there on the West Virginia border, that is of coming like 2024, I believe is what they've got that labeled. So that's coming in the future, but the that mid-grade blue that's inside of there still says coming 2023 or available 2023. So maybe by the next meeting, they'll start opening up more and more of these light blue cells as they're launching more and more satellites. So any question on Starlink at this point?
Jason, I would say that as an independent IT contractor for the county, in the county, that the service issues that they've been having, if it works really well. And it works well most of the time, but when you have problems, it's a problem. And almost to the point where if it continues to go the way it is and they're months sometimes getting these issues resolved, that's not really practical for a lot of users, especially if you were in a business. However, that's probably a different package, so it may be a little more reliable. But I think if the service issues continue, then this committee perhaps should reconsider that as a recommended option, for temporary internet connection. Because again, the reliability of it and the issues that they're having getting issues resolved would kind of remove it from the list of stuff that I would personally recommend, and I would hope that this committee probably feels the same way.
No, I would 100% agree with you, David. We have, Jason Jacobus firsthand example. We've also had another member of the Caroline County actually contact and ask for help. And it was a month before they got anything back, and there was no live person to talk to. You just go through the app and you request help through the app. You have no way of getting information. The only way that I've seen that you can continue that priority is to keep going back and adding information every single day, and it keeps pushing your ticket up to the top of the queue and makes it harder for them to ignore. But again, that they need to work on that service agreement to help make sure that they have that solved.
Yeah, the issue is that the customer that I was working with actually lost internet connection, and they were in an area where cell phone coverage was so bad that they were using that satellite to improve their internet connection, so they couldn't open the app. Or they opened the app and tried to report the problem, and there was no connectivity to report the problem. And the only way, in researching it, going on the website, looking for numbers, even through back channels, the only way to report an issue that I can see at this time is through the app. So if you're going to have connectivity with that app in order to be able to report a problem.
It's
That is
definitely a catch-22, right? Because they want the debug data from the app, but if the connection's not working, then you're gonna have to take it and take this large JSON file full of text and copy it, and maybe a little bit above and beyond the average user, right? So, but getting back to your recommendation for businesses, the business plans do include some type of live support, more enhanced than residential packages. So maybe that's what you get for the extra price per month.
Yeah, so I think it will be interesting. I think we do have some customers in the county that are looking at the business package. And so as those start going out there, now remember that the cost of that is a lot higher than your average package. But once we get a couple of those out there, we'll be able to check with them and see what their support options have been and their experience. So we'll know more and report back.
Jason, I did have one just to add some good news for all the folks that are doing Starlink. We had a few, I had a few people in the Mattapan district who I told to apply. Even though it said we weren't ready, they've both gotten connected. So I think it's fairly sporadic. One is south of 301 and one is in the Balti area. So they are picking different places based on when you applied. So if you don't have anything, it's still worthwhile to apply.
That's good to hear. I can tell you that the business, if you apply now for the business internet on Starlink, it is available now. Of course, the business hardware is like $2,500 just for the hardware itself. And the service agreement every month is $250. So it's a whole lot higher. It's almost double what it is for the residential, because right now it's $120 for residential service. But again, it's, better than the alternatives that are out there.
And it's my understanding that it is different equipment, a larger dish. And the fact that they offer tech support. But again, $250 is a big pill to swallow for most people for home internet. And as far as I know, they do not participate in the Affordable Connectivity Program.
Yeah, that I'm not 100% sure of.
But we'll need to check on that. But as far as I know, they don't at this time.
All right. Any other Starlink questions? All right, David, do you want to give an update on 2023?
So at about 10 minutes after 4 last Thursday, I started getting calls. I'll tell you a quick story. Started getting calls congratulating us on winning the VATI grant for 2023. Well, in fact, Dr. Calveric from school system sent an email congratulate me and forwarded the copy of the governor's press release. Well, my Outlook by default blocks downloads of pictures. So I could read the whole press release, and it was talking about, X number of counties got X number of dollars, but nowhere in there did it say anything about Carolina. And I'm looking at it. So I go to the governor's website. It hadn't made it up on the governor's press release website yet. Went to VATI. There was a link on the press release for VATI, and all that did was take you to a normal page. So I picked up the phone, and we actually called DHCD and spoke with them, and they answered the phone, I identified myself, and they said, congratulations. So I knew at that point that years of work from this committee, years of support from the Board of Supervisors had finally come to fruition. So it turns out that we were awarded both grants that we had applied for, which would bring universal coverage to Caroline County. Now, immediately you start getting questions about, well, how quick? I will tell you, I'll bring you up to speed kind of where we're at now. Both partners, Verizon and BreezeLine, have received official notification from DHCD as well as the county as of today that we were awarded. So at that point, we start, the first thing we'll do is we'll have a meeting with DHCD and discuss contract negotiations. Of course, contracts have to be signed by the county, by the partner, and by DHCD, and approved by the Attorney General's office on behalf of the state. So we start that process. That's back and forth, and that'll take a little bit of time. But as those contracts get signed and the design and engineering of the projects start falling into place, then we'll have a better idea of timelines or areas that they're going to start first. I do know that BreezeLine was already committed under the RDOF funding. So they've already started walkout and engineering of their RDOF area. It may end up being that that's the first phase of their projects. But again, timelines, maximum amount of time, 18 months from the time the contract is signed, more than likely on a project this size of Verizon. These are just estimates. But because of the size of the BreezeLine project and the fact that VATI or RDOF was included, probably about 3 years to complete that project, because that is a large project, 4,890 some odd homes on the BreezeLine side, and about 891 for Verizon. So 2 completely different project sizes. Jason, I think you had some stuff that you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, the one thing I will add is the if you go out to Google, you do a search for Virginia governor announcements, you can actually see it there. That the governor awarded $59.5 million to different counties for the VATI grant. To Caroline County was just a little over $10 million. And with that, we ended up getting about 14% of the pot, which is very good. That meant we had a very strong application. We took a lot of the feedback that we got from the 2022 grant and applied that to the 2023, taking lessons learned from that meeting with DHCD, many tireless hours with, Mr. Sadler and the Board of Supervisors, working through all that grant, getting it taken care of. I think it's definitely put us in a really awesome place at this point in time. And again, the next phase, like David said, everybody wants to know when. It's now we go into the waiting game. We've gone over the biggest hurdle at this point, which is getting the funding. Because without the funding, we can't even start the project. We now have all the funding laid out. We have the funds that were guaranteed or promised from the different providers, both Verizon and BreezeLine. The Board of Supervisors has promised the funds and already has it set aside for us. And then the state has already awarded the grants to us. So we have all of our funds solidified right now, which is the best way to do business, is to have your money in hand before you start moving forward and overextending yourself. So now the best thing is we just have to wait. And like David said, hopefully within the next month, 2 months, 3 months, hopefully we'll be able to give you more and more information on different timelines, where we are on the process. But again, it kind of goes to patience right now to let them finish their workout and engineering to make sure they develop and do the best network possible. And that is one thing that I will say is when the VATI grant was written, the infrastructure that they're looking to build out is not yesterday's infrastructure. It is tomorrow's infrastructure. It's not, and Mr. Sadler has corrected me multiple times, so I will call myself out on that. I always say future proof. There's no such thing as future proof. It's future ready. So, but it does have the network that they are building out is forward thinking. It's not pigeonholing us or putting us in a box and putting in old equipment. And we could have, the project could have been done for a lot cheaper, but it wouldn't have been as reliable as what we are looking to build out at this point. So again, it's time, patience, and like I said, the biggest hurdle is over. We've been waiting just like everybody else on the edge of our seat, waiting to hear. And I honestly wasn't planning on it until June, but then when David contacted me on Thursday, I about jumped out of my seat learning that information. So it's definitely a good feeling to be on this side of it.
And Jason, the one thing is that I believe the money doesn't become available until July 1 with the start of the new fiscal year. So between now and then, there'll be some preliminary planning. But as soon as we know, the committee, the county, will publish the schedule so folks will know. Because I think that's the one question people have now is, all right, we got the grant. When am I going to get it? Is it going to be tomorrow? And I think the first thing is it's not going to be tomorrow, but it will be in the next 18 months. And part of that is the county's money is COVID funds. So we have a distinct time frame with which to use those funds. So we're going to try to use those first to make sure we've cleared it.
Also, to add to that, Mr. Thomas, the partners also have the ability to do, it's like a pre-funding approval. So they can say, during this pre-funding phase, we want to go ahead and start design and engineering, for example. So it doesn't necessarily, anything doesn't stop right now and wait till July 1. Well, July 1's only a month and a half away, but they will start the design engineering walkout, as soon as they get that approval from the state. And that's a form that has to be submitted. So nothing's going to stop. They'll be working towards it. We are hopeful that because we have already negotiated a contract with BreezeLine for VATI 2021, we can use that as a starting point for our 2023 and streamline that contract phase. because both Breeze Line's attorneys, our attorneys, as well as Attorney General have signed off on that agreement. So it shouldn't be, too far off. Mr. Seeley, did you have anything you would like to add to the 2023?
The only thing I'm anxious to see is the maps of how we'll build it out and what will be Vatty and what will be RDOF, how those will merge, because I think that's going to be the next interesting set of questions we get. So as time moves forward, if we get a set of maps or any sort of timelines.
So what the way I understand it is, Breeze Line went to a reverse auction with the federal government to bid on the RDOF area. They were awarded a certain amount of money to build out in that area, basically south of AP Hill, east of 301, and kind of north of probably 600, roughly in that area. So it covers Central Point Pass and Schumansville, a lot of the really super rural areas.
Places, right.
So they've received that funding. So what happens is, normally those people under RDOF, the company, the partner that receives the funding has 4 years to complete 60% of the construction. Well, Vatty says if you roll that money, so they take the money from the federal government, use that as a contribution towards the Vatty project and combine it all together, then 100% of that area has to be completed in 3 years. So that speeds up the timeline. Basically what happens is the entire project then, so the RDOF area now is the same
Part
as
of the Vatty.
The only difference being is because those were federally funded residences in that area, the county did not have to pay a matching contribution on those. The entire RDOF money was used. So again, it saved us more, that way as well. So.
And David, just so people can look it up, RDOF is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund.
Yes, and that's a federally funded.
Right. It's part of the FCC.
Yeah.
Not FCC.
So do you think we'll see maps in July potentially of how this will get laid out?
I think it's going to be once design and engineering is complete at the earliest, and they'll give a timeline. That timeline is subject to change. I've got a feeling that because RDOF was rolled into Vatty, they are still under that 40% requirement in a certain amount of time. So, that could actually end up being an early part of the project because they've already started design, engineering, and walkout.
Right.
So it's really hard to say at this point, but I do know that, they'll have to build it in phases anyway. It's such a large project, and, that area actually helps them get their backbone out into the county where they could attach in multiple places. So we'll have to continue to watch that once the design engineering, and then they'll drop it into a project management package and actually set the timeline. We will also try to pass that information on to the general public as soon as we get it, because people like to know if there's going to be people walking their property, for example. We received prior notice from Breeze Line. They've been extremely good about letting us know that they were going to be in the RDOF area. And sure enough, people were calling saying, yep, they're here. So, we will continue to try to get that information from them on a timely manner. Just keep an eye out on the county website, and we'll try to notify you if your area is the next to be walked out or studied, because it may involve Breeze Line coming across your property where the right-of-ways exist, for REC or others.
Okay.
So I had two more quick things to add. One is I want to touch on, I've heard two different dates, and I just want to make sure that we talk about those. With Verizon, which is west of 95, we're thinking, they have 3 years to complete the project, but we're thinking with the size of that it would be more condensed down on that timeline.
There's actually the standard time that a VADI project can run is 18 months. And they're would be considered a more standard size. So that's why they fit into the 18 months. But because of the size and the RDOF being rolled into the other, it may be extended up to 3 years.
And the 3 years that you're talking about is just east of 95. West of 95, which is Verizon, is the 18-month. Again, east of 95, which is a larger project, could take up to 3 years.
Yes. Now, I will say, while we're talking about east of 95, I believe most of the members on the committee have seen some concern about breeze line service level. I will say that basically what I've experienced in the past is a lot of what you hear on Facebook is only bad news. So if there's a problem, if an internet service company goes down for 5 minutes, the only thing you're going to hear on Facebook or other social media accounts is they're always going down. That's not the case. The other thing that I would say is that the system that's going in under this VADI 2023 is the same system that went in VADI 2021. It's completely different than the existing system. And we've continued to evaluate that, working with multiple customers that communicate with us on a regular basis, and they are extremely satisfied with the level of service. And it's our hopes that eventually the entire breeze line plant, including the existing now, will be upgraded to that as well. So,
and the one other thing that I would add to that is, and we had a brief conversation on Thursday about this, is just because, let's say you're in phase 1 of the project and they're not going to wait for the entire phase 1 to be completed. They will be turning people on in groups as they move through. They're not going to be waiting 18 months to turn on everybody at one time, that they will be opening up to sales a little quicker based on the size of these projects and stuff.
So just like the county and everybody else learned from VADI 2021, BreezeLine has learned as well from that. So their intentions are, as they finish an area, test it, qualify it, turn it over to sales, keep growing. And so just because it's a 3-year project, there's going to be a lot of customers that will be turned on much quicker than that. I will say that as well, Verizon, when they made their presentation to the committee, that's actually broken into 3 small phases. So it's a smaller project, but it's still phases. And if you look, those projects always start where the backbone is and build out. So we'll update the public as soon as we know more about the timeline. The only other thing that I could add to that would be when VADI 2021 was announced and we started, I thought 18 months is forever. But 18 months went by fairly quick when they did a lot of work. And I will say that, you know, VADI 2021, that entire project took place while we were in COVID. And so there were tremendous supply chain issues. We still have some supply chain issues, but BreezeLine did a good job of moving around existing inventory. It was really strange, but they were having supply chain problems with parts that you would just never imagine, like nuts and bolts, and stainless steel washers. So they were extremely responsive throughout that. And part of the application for 2023 is how both partners, both Verizon and BreezeLine, plan to either deal with or reduce supply chain issues and effects on the project. So both partners come into this now with a plan on how to react. And so even building the entire 2021 project throughout COVID, the entire thing, the deadline to finish that project was the end of January of 2023. They did have to apply for an extension, but by the end of January 2023, all construction was complete and sales had received all the addresses. The only reason they had to have the extension was to make sure that the necessary paperwork was filed before the project ended. So, you know, theoretically, 2021 finished on time and it was built completely in COVID. So we have hopes that, you know, we've learned lessons from 2021 and hopefully that'll make it easier for us to get through 2023.
Yes, about the RDOF area. We may not have an answer to this, but I know that it's a little different from VATI, but since it was rolled into VATI, do we know if that also includes all the way to the house? The way, because I know that VATI is all the way to the house. It's connected, you know, the customer doesn't have to pay a fee. And there's a lot of folks in that area that have long driveways. Just curious.
Yeah, so because it's rolled into VATI, it's going to include drops, 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet, whatever it takes to get to the house. The really good news too is that any properties that exist now, whether you have a house or not, are marked in VATI. So you could have a vacant lot now, and 5 years down the road, you call Breezeline or Verizon and ask for internet, it's not going to be the $8,000 or $10,000 to run the fiber. It's going to be at a standard installation fee. So it's a huge advantage for every resident of Caroline County.
I do have one question on that just popped in my head. If for some reason, because you have an address, if you subdivide that property down the road and create a separate address, does that also go with that, or how does that apply?
It should be included because
Okay.
it's basically ranges. And because I think what they're going to look at is basically, you know, you have two customers, one on each side and theirs. But as far as I know, their intentions are to mark that address as well.
We had that very issue on Sparta Road and it was resolved very quickly.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Sorry, it's just something that popped
Nope,
in my
I
head.
agree.
It is a huge advantage, though, that the citizens need to know that because of this funding, you're going to have advantages that will help you well into the future as well. So it's exciting. And again, Mr. Thomas and Mr. Seeley, I've said this a few times, but without the support of the Board of Supervisors for throughout this entire process, which started for me back in, I guess, VATI 2019. You know,
Yeah,
so
the one we didn't get, the very
Yeah.
first one, right?
So, but we followed the same rules, and we said we were going to do the same thing. We'll learn from our mistakes, correct our mistakes, and move forward. But without the support of you guys making it a priority for the board, this committee wouldn't exist because we were formed by you guys, and the financial backing to make these projects possible just would not have happened.
And let me just say, this has always been a unanimous issue on the board. There was no, and we set aside the American Rescue Act funds for this project. There was no, well, if we don't get this, we'll do something else. The goal was to set those funds aside and push them as far down the road as we could so that when we got this project, we'd have the funds. And that was a unanimous decision by the board, not a pick and choose.
And another good point for that, David, is you will recall in the early stages when we said, how much would it cost for us to run fiber down 301 to connect to, one part of the county to the other? And I think the number at that time was $10 million. And we realized it was not something the county could do itself, but we had to rely on the existing partners. And it's definitely been a team effort. So glad to be part of the team.
Just reemphasize that, Mr. Thomas, the cost of both projects together, the total cost, just to let the citizens know that financially it would have been difficult, to say the least, for the county to do without the help of partners and funding. But the entire cost of both projects together at the time we applied was estimated to be $29 million. So you can figure now with inflation, it's probably a little bit higher than that. But the good thing is that we're tied into that application price. So at $30 million, that would have been a tough one for the county to be able to bear. So I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the board, but as a citizen, I know that would have been a huge increase in property taxes that probably most people would have difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, because you would have to finance it over 20 years.
Well, and I have to, Breezeline and Verizon stepped up. I mean, with the contributions that both Breezeline and Verizon both stepped up and gave huge contributions that definitely helped improve our VATI application, because without those contributions, the contributions from the board, I don't think that we would have been rated and gotten even this VATI grant.
And that's the thing, I guess, if we look back at our application for 22 that we were not successful with, the two biggest changes is the contribution from our partners went from about 10 or 12% to about 60%. So both partners kicked in a huge amount more than what was required. And then the other, of course, thing that is different is our partner that we've selected for the Western Caroline was able to include all the addresses. So we're able to achieve that universal coverage that we needed in one single application cycle. So, but with the federal dollars coming down, we knew that there was around $50 million that the state had appropriated to VATI 2023. The rest they were hoping to be able to fund with the federal money. But we knew if we got a strong enough application that we should make it in the first cut. And that's what we did. So we made it in we were actually funded from state dollars, and the BEAD money is yet to be worked out.
As you can tell, we're all very, very excited about this. So that's why we're talking so much about this. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
We have had a couple of questions about, for example, on the west side, if you live west of 95 and you do not currently have an internet connection, then your partner that's working with us to cover that area is Verizon. There may be some overlap to where a few people may have the opportunity, current customers may, but the state limits the amount of overbuild because the state and the federal government both are real big on not necessarily they're not funding competition. What they want to do is get everybody a connection first. And we're still on that, let's get everybody connected. And then down the road, things could change. But right now they're not. For example, I think a project is allowed in 21, it was only 10%. If it had more than 10% overbuild, so if there were 10% of that project included existing internet connections, it would not have been accepted. So.
Anything else?
Yeah. I think one more thing is this is a giant leap for quality of life for all the folks that live in Caroline. As somebody who commuted to Northern Virginia for a lot of years, you could work from home. I think some folks still do work from home. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to think of that. The e-commerce, the businesses we could put on. It's going to be great. It's going to make it an even better place to live.
Amen to that.
All right, this is it. I didn't know we were doing feel-good comments now, but fair enough. I don't want to speak on behalf of CCPS because that's not my role, but as a parent and a citizen that grew up in Sparta and eventually decided to move because I wanted high-speed internet, and I knew that it was never coming, so I just moved. And my parents still live there. My brother lives out there, and now they don't have to move. The amount of students that you all are helping, families, we issue out so many hotspots, and it's unbelievable the amount of folks that are going to be benefited by this. It cannot be understated how exciting this is. So thank you, all of you.
Yeah, all right, last one for real, because that's something that we did, and you kind of mentioned something that was really, really important, but this committee came up with a plan, and you remember when I wrote the first one is how we will do it in phases, and hotspots was one of the phases. So the Board of Supervisors paid for hotspots for the libraries to pass out to people who needed it right away if you're working from home for a while. And now we're finally at this, and we looked at Starlink, and we looked at all those things, and we're finally at the goal, and 18 to 24 months from now, we'll all be talking to each other via the internet, hopefully, and quick response times, which is wonderful. So I am happy.
One more quick comment, and going back and looking at the application in 2021, and Dr. Kavaric has been a huge supporter of both applications, but she made a very good point in the application in 2021 is that studies show that households who have broadband, the children in those households score higher on standardized testing. So I'm hoping that this effort, this team effort that we managed to pull together will help improve the lives of the citizens in Carolina, as well as the performance of our students in school. So I think it is a major change. And again, without the support of all of the board, it would not have happened.
Well, and one extra thing, the broadband trailers. You know, we put in trailers at different places around the county. We set them up down at Reedy Ruetan Church. We put one down in Sparta, you know, those different places to help out. Those are things that hopefully, 18 to, 36 months, what have you, that those won't be needed anymore. People can just sit in their house. Mr. Thomas, I believe one of your constituents in that area has a photography studio. And I continue to talk to her on time to time, just making sure things are going good, because she was one of the first houses, and she is no longer having to drive anywhere to do her business. She's actually looking at building a studio behind her house on another piece of property and expanding her business. That's another, success story. That's where this is going to be able to extend, that, city infrastructure to a rural community and help us compete also with some of that. So, all right. Nobody else is going red on their lights? I think we're good. We'll finish up old business. We talked a lot of old business with new business. So any new business anybody has? All right. Next meeting, June 19th, 7 p.m. Maybe Zoom, maybe in person. I don't know. We'll have to figure that one out. Is everybody okay with that?
I am. I think it's been rather interesting tonight, even though this was like we switched from Zoom to in person. It has been good to meet these guys that we've been working with. Some of these guys we've been working with now for 2 years or more, and never actually met face to face. So I would like to thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules to come here this evening. And again, all of you guys deserve the credit as well. The Broadband Advisory Committee made a plan. We didn't go for the quickest solution. We went for the best. And I think hopefully that's going to pay off for everyone. But thank you.
All right. Nothing else. We'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you guys. Thanks everybody for attending. Thanks for everybody watching online. And look to see you back on June 19th.